Welcome, welcome. Thank you all for joining us this morning. My name is Ricardo Bueno. I'm with Follow Up Boss. And Daniel, the reason I reached out to him is, I talk to a lot of agents who invest a lot of money into different lead sources. Just how do we generate leads online to fill the pipeline? But then we have experiences, we kind of fall short. So I think the goal is, how can we break the bad habits that we have in our business when it comes to contact and conversion process? How can we establish some better habits or better processes so that we can, nurture those relationships and get them over the finish line? So that we're not sitting here frustrated 12 months from now thinking, Ricardo, I got all these leads, but man, they're not closing. How do we nurture those relationships better? So Daniel, thank you for joining us. Really appreciate what you guys are doing and appreciate your time. Kick it away.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Ricardo. I'll give you just the attendees a bit of some context for why you should even listen to me or why we know anything. I've been with Verse for about 4.5 years now, but to give you some context on what Verse does, so that you understand why we know a thing or two about conversion, is Verse actually started as a company called Agentology, and we actually ran a referral network. So we generated leads through some of our own domains, and we ran a referral network nationwide where we would pass the leads out to different agents, and it was kind of on a home light model where they'd pay a referral fee if they closed. But the biggest pain point we had starting was that the agents weren't following up with the lead. So we'd send them a lead, and we actually had, this is how dumb we were in the beginning. We actually had an entire team of people whose job it was to call the agents a week later and go, did you call that lead? And hey, are you following up? And how did it go? Because we weren't really getting paid until they were closing them. And if they weren't closing them, then that's the big pain point for us. And so one day, one of the co-founders, his younger brother, was like, we should call the leads for them. we should reach out to the leads before we pass them. And so that's how Verse started. That's how Agentology started. We were following up with the leads on behalf of the agents, and then we would pass them off once they were qualified. And that's a good business. There are some competitors who took it a different way, but we kind of evolved to start offering the concierge team that we had built and the software that we had built to agents so that they could kind of outsource this. So we've been following up. We process more than 200,000 leads a month now in all verticals, not just in real estate anymore. We're in mortgage and a bunch of others. But some of the data that we've collected and some of the information that we have now is really valuable, right? Now we know, okay, here's what works and here's what doesn't work. One of the things that's pretty key, and I'll kick into it pretty soon, but one of the things that's key is in 2017, 2018, we started seeing a huge decrease in the number of people who are picking up their phones. And there's probably a bunch of reasons why, but one of them is the robo-dialers started really ramping up in 2017, 2018. And how your phone rings. Everyone who's attending here, what happens when your phone rings now. We're psychologically conditioned now when your phone rings to kind of and I know agents are maybe a little bit different, but just regular people, consumers, when the phone rings, you're kind of like, shut up. Just go. And when you get a text message, it's the opposite, right? When you have a text message, you go, oh, who is it? Who, is it someone interesting? Am I missing something? Is it one of my family members, whatever? And so people were ignoring phone calls and kind of responding to text message a lot. And we really ran with that. So I put together, and so basically our technology is now kind of really focused on texting, but with an omnichannel approach. But I put together a few things that everyone may not know that kind of we know from our experience, and I wanted to just share it with the attendees today. Hopefully there's some action items in there that you can take right away. If you don't want to do it, that's when you'd work with Verse, but that's not what this is focused on. I'm just trying to kind of share what we know so that you can apply it to your business. Hopefully that's some good context there, Ricardo.
Absolutely.
I'm going to share my screen with you. I put together a few slides sorry. I put together a few slides that kind of just go through, what I didn't want to have animations on them. They kind of go through a few bad habits that you might have, and maybe solutions for those habits. And the first one is kind of based on what we were just talking about. What we found, and you may see this in your own personal life, but for sure in the business life, and this is not just limited to real estate leads, this is across the lead spectrum and all these different verticals, is that if you're offering, rather than just calling, if you're offering a text first that says that you're willing to do either, that's huge. And I'll share the actual wording on a few slides later that you can copy paste and just send out in your text messages. So pretty key in our own engagement rate, in our own response rate. We see about, depending on the lead source, and guys, lead conversion is always, you have to always kind of source it back. The biggest factor is going to be where the lead's coming from, right? If they're top of funnel, then you may not have a high response rate. That's just kind of how it works. And then, leads that come from places where people are, making buying decisions, personal referrals and Zillow and places like that, where you're getting a lead that's, they want to go see the home and they want to talk. Those have higher engagement rates, but you're always going to see higher engagement rates if you're offering more than one channel to communicate. So the first text message will always go out from us that says, "Hi, this is Alex with your so-and-so home team. Saw you're interested in possibly looking at a home. Be happy to help you. Do you want to jump on a call, or do you want to continue via text?" And by offering that, they're definitely going to read it, right? So versus a phone call or a voicemail drop, which all are, all of that's good. Nothing's bad. Communicate however you can, but they're definitely going to read that text message, and they're probably going to respond to it, and they may respond to it in a way that you wouldn't get that feedback through a phone call. So if you call someone and you leave a voicemail, or you call someone and they don't pick up and you don't leave a voicemail and you call again, they might be at work, right? They might be, at a place where they can't talk right now. They might be at church. They might be where, they might be in a situation where they'd be happy to talk with you, but they're not going to be able to communicate that with you via a phone call. Right. And if you give them a text message, you'd be, maybe you wouldn't be surprised, but we get a ton of people that say, "Can't talk now, call me at 4," which is, like, you wouldn't have gotten that information if you just blasted them and called them 7 times, and they probably get annoyed with you, like the way that you would get annoyed if someone called you 7 times. But by opening up the channel of text, and obviously email too, I know all of that's you're able to do all of that within Follow-Up Boss, so all of that should be kind of optimized. But if you are going to be sending out a personal message, or you are going to be reaching out to leads yourself, or if you run an ISA team, first of all, start with text. Throw in calls if you want to, but starting with text definitely is going to get you a higher engagement. And number 2, this is kind of based on number 1, which is just responding to leads quickly. Everyone knows all the stats: 21 times more likely to convert a lead if you follow up within 5 minutes versus 30 minutes, which is kind of old. That's an outdated stat, but there's a bunch more now. But like something about, I think I just posted it recently. It was like 60-something% of millennials get anxiety when the phone rings. Which it's kind of like they say they have an anxious reaction, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, anyway, speed to lead is super, super important, especially, and we always talk about this because leads have kind of been never easier to get. Right? You have all these different channels to generate leads, right? Used to be direct mail and door knocking, right? Or cold calling. And now you've got all these different platforms, and there's social media, and there's Craigslist, and there's a million there's all these different places where you can generate leads. So it's never been easier to kind of get in front of people, but that makes it even harder to kind of stand out. And so when a lead does come in, if you're not contacting them quickly, it's very likely that, they're moving on to the next thing. They're still scrolling. Maybe they are motivated. The ironic thing is the more motivated they are, the more likely it is they're going to go fill out another form like this if you don't contact them quickly. So it's probably things you guys all already preach already, but
we call them button pushers and form fillers.
Yeah,
they're filling out their information on at least half a dozen or a dozen other websites.
Well, and then they're like annoyed when they get
inundated with text and voice.
Well, it's just like me on Yelp. Like 3 days ago, I was looking for something on Yelp, and it said, "Do you want to like shop this around?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." But then I'm getting all this I'm getting all these messages, and I'm like, "Ugh, guys!" But I asked for it, you know. But anyway, yeah. So obviously, speed to lead's important, but speed to conversation is almost more important, right? So it's not that your email goes out and your call goes out and automated text goes out. Like all of that's good, but at the same time, if it's all just a bunch of noise and none of it's trying to actually have a conversation, then you're going to look like it as much noise. So what we always talk about is speed to conversation. So how fast can we actually get them talking to us about what they want, and how fast can we establish you or the companies that we work for, how fast can we establish them as the one they're working with, right? Like the next call that comes from someone else is going to be like, yeah, I'm already working with someone. That's what we want to get to. And maybe ironically, us asking them questions, us qualifying them, it's kind of like in a conversation that you have with a date or something. Like the more questions that you ask them, the more you can show that you're interested in their journey, the more likely it is that they're going to work with you, and the more they felt heard. So our conversations that we have on behalf of our clients are almost, the first question people ask when they start working with Verse is, well, what if they ask you a tough question? And we're like, they actually barely ask us anything. Like we're asking them. Then for whatever reason, I mean, we're conversationally just kind of gathering some qualifying information and then passing them. But they have questions like, when can I see the home, or how much can I qualify for, and things like that, which we obviously push to whoever our companies are that we're working with. We say, yeah, that's a great question. I'll get you connected to.
That's an important distinction. I think you said it's asking discovery questions or pushing them towards those discovery questions, because it makes them feel like you do have an interest in them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And not just qualifying questions, not like, yeah. Not just, I don't want to be on I don't want to deal with you if your credit score is not over 600 or something. Yeah, you're right. I mean, and it's funny because they are willing to answer them via text, right? I should clarify, we do call. So the question always goes out that says, do you want to call or do you want to text? If they say call, we just call them and we have the same kind of conversation. Right, I think I just pulled up a report, and it would be probably good to share this with you guys if I had it, but I just pulled a report for the last 4 years with what percentage of people responded that they want to chat via text versus wanted a phone call. And the first year that the farthest year I could go back was 2018 for when we had that data. And I think in 2018, it was almost 50-50. So when we texted them, they said, you can call me. It's now, I think, 84-16. So 84% of people are asking for text. So when you give them a text, yeah, and it's every year it just looks like either up or down if you're talking about text or phone calls. But yeah, the number of people who respond that they're interested in text has gone up huge. But that makes sense, right? That's something that logically follows. So I included here this script. I can throw it in the chat too if you want me to copy it. But this is basically the question that we always start out with, and then we follow those questions with, obviously, are you working? You guys want to qualify your leads as much as you want to discover. So you do want to ask. Next question would be like, great, be happy. If they say text, we'll say, great, be happy to help. Just so I'm not stepping on any toes, are you currently under contract with any other agents? Are you touring homes with any other agents? And if they say yes, then we'll go through an unqualifying script. If they say no, then we'll continue on. And then we're usually looking for the same things you'd look for: time frame, Have you been pre-approved? A few of those. What with us, the real estate customers that we work with are typically using kind of our standard real estate scripts. We have buyer and seller scripts, and we also have scripts based on each lead source. But most of them are just going through kind of those basic qualifying questions and just trying to establish a relationship and then book an appointment for them or live transfer them. That's kind of our end goal, is to get to one of those two things.
Awesome.
So yeah, obviously setting up automation. So something's going out, that's the bare minimum, which obviously you guys help with that. And I always say consider outsourcing lead engagement. If you're not able, or you don't want that to be your job, is responding to leads 24/7, working with actual clients who've been qualified and meet with you and actually want to talk with you, like that should be your job. And outsourcing lead engagement is a pretty good idea for process and for trying to scale, especially if you have a lead source that's working and you have a system that's working, and you have talented people on your team. Like, if it works for 100 leads, it should work for 1,000, right? Let's keep going. And you have to be thinking, obviously, you guys all know this, but you have to be thinking about that with your business, because that's when things start to break, right? When you scale. Mm-hmm. So the cleaner and tighter your process is when you're small, the more likely and the more able you are to scale it.
One of our operating mantras has sort of been highest and best use of time.
Yeah.
So, what systems or processes can you put in place so that you're consistently doing $1,000 an hour work, not $5 an hour work?
Exactly.
And again, chasing those leads is doing a bunch of grunt $5 an hour work versus talking to somebody who's qualified, negotiating a contract, going on a listing presentation. You want to outsource that $5 an hour work, 100%. Even if it's an investment.
Yeah, exactly. And there are, I think probably there was a choice when we first started, because I'm in business development now, so I'm working more with partnerships. But when I was selling first to real estate agents and mortgage, when I was on the sales team, there was a choice in 2018, I think, where in 2017, where there were people who said, well, I don't do anything digital. Like, I don't do anything online. And you go, it's all referrals and relationships. And I can't fault anybody. That's the great idea. You totally should do that. You should also still be relying on people who have digital based businesses now, like the real estate agents and teams who operate online. But those people should also be relying on referrals, and that should also be the biggest part of your business. Like, nobody's saying, but it seemed like there was a choice before about it, where you could say, well, I'm not going to take part in that, and I don't care. I don't want a website, and I don't want a CRM, and I don't want it. That's not really a choice anymore. It's just leaving money on the table not to take advantage of the times that we're living in, where if you're successful, and especially if you are talented, get your name out there, get your business out there, and that's going to generate leads. And if you want to ramp it up and then do more and monetize it, then you have to kind of be ready to scale that part of the business. It's almost a separate business system, right? From actual production, the lead generation and conversion and engagement and all that stuff is almost just like a separate arm of the business now. So anyway, another bad habit, and I'm sure you guys don't do this because you have Follow Up Boss and you're dripping on your database, but there are leads in your database. One of the things you should be doing is obviously scheduling yourself to go do check-ins, to talk with them. One of the use cases for what Verse does is people send us the database of their old leads, and they're always surprised at the number of people who actually do respond when we re-engage them. If you come at it from a conversational standpoint and less from, we all get those emails from the places that we've subscribed for our whole lives, and I have every morning it's 25 new emails, and you're like, I don't know, you haven't read one in however long. You want to make sure you're sending engaging content, but we frequently see when we upload a list of 5,000 leads, depending on how old and where they came from and all that, but it's not shocking to see a 5 or 6% qualification rate to those, because, you know, maybe they fill out a form a long time ago, maybe you had a conversation with them, maybe you didn't, but those people, you know, they've been seeing your emails, whether they delete them or read them or not. And if you do reach out with a real engaging message and a conversational text or a conversational tone, you know, there's a good chance you can get a response. I'm sure you have a lot more to say about database leads, Ricardo.
It's surprising to say, like, this is something that my good friend and podcast co-host says all the time. Especially if you're doing any type of consumer direct, they're always 2 to 18 months out from making some type of purchasing decision. And it's always fascinating to see that, you know, you might think that they're not replying to your texts, and you might think that they're not, you know, they're opening your emails, but they're not replying. A lack of response doesn't necessarily mean I'm not interested. It just means, you know, I'm interested, just not right now.
Yeah.
And so the hard part is we want them to respond right now. We want them so badly to respond right now. But no isn't no. It just means not right now for whatever the reason. You'll see that there's people in your database that have been reading your content for 2 years, 3 years, and then boom, out of nowhere, they finally raise their hand and express interest. So like what we recommend when we put them on these drip campaigns is, like, we might put them on an aggressive 7-day, 14-day drip campaign, or run them through your ISA and whatnot, right? Don't forget to turn on that long-term automation. And so you can do some of that through our system. But like one of the last emails in our sequence says, not yet, question mark. And we get a really high response rate to this, but it's like, hey, Daniel, I'll take your not responding as a sort of back off signal. I totally get it. Right now may not be the right time to buy or sell for you. In the meantime, I'm going to set you up with like the monthly HomeBot digest or the monthly local market update. You can always get in touch with me through HomeBot. It's just going to reach out once a month with what's most important to you. You can get in touch with me through there, or as always, feel free to call, text, or email. So in Follow Up Boss, what you're doing is you're setting up an action plan for each new lead source. And the action plan is just your drip campaign. So every lead source should have its own drip campaign. And then you can layer automations on top of it. So action plan is for one like dedicated lead source. It happens once, but the automations, what they do is you can set a bunch of like triggers. So you can say a lead was on my website, they looked at a bunch of listings, and then they kind of disappear, right? That person was not interested right now. But if that person visits your website at some point later down the road, 6 months later, 9 months later, a year later, and they favorite a property, you can tell the system, hey, tag this lead as a hot lead again, because they just expressed interest, because they just came back to my website and looked at a listing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a bunch of different like rules and automations. What I would do is set it up so that your leads or your database is always getting nurtured in some way, shape, or form. And the trick is like finding a balance between persistent versus pestering. You don't want to be too far down the spectrum where you're just pestering people.
Well, and the key is value, right? Like how much value
Right.
are you bringing? And that's probably the big difference between pestering and, you know, like they know you want to make a sale and they know you're trying to help, but are you going to provide them with something of value?
Right.
And what do you know now that I don't know? Like, and it's probably a lot. Like you guys are out there. You probably like. There's a lot of people who have questions about what's happening with rates, with the markets, with neighborhoods. Like, there's just so many things you know that I don't know. And so tell them, like, give them that information, right? But that's brilliant, Ricardo. I didn't know that. I assumed, I guess, but that each lead source could have its own triggers and own automation separate from each source, which is really smart to do. It'll also help when you're trying to make those decisions next year about which lead sources you're going to invest more in, and
Yep.
which ones to pour gasoline on.
Yep.
This one is kind of, you know, it's the same old. Ricardo and I were talking about kids before this, and you don't really get a break. But you know, the time with your loved ones is precious. Agents have it like this is you're a full-time job. It's a 24/7 thing. I know, and your phone, and with everything else, like now that there's TikTok is a time suck. So the 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 systems for after hours and weekends, we always say like, like about half the leads that we get into Verse, it's almost 50. I think it's like 46% or something. Half the leads that we get come in after hours. So
Yeah,
makes sense.
that was a wild stat to see.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes it's more depending on, I actually I pulled up a report of all the different verticals that we work in, home services and solar and mortgage and all these different ones. And I was surprised to see in some verticals it's even more where they make decisions, or they explore certain products after hours. Mortgage and real estate are kind of standard down the middle. It's about 50-50. And so, but you should have, that shouldn't necessarily be you. So if you have a high lead volume, that is something you might consider outsourcing, so that you can unplug, at least unplug for new leads, right? You can kind of work your current clients and help put out fires in that way. But
if you're thinking you can keep up with the lead flow yourself, I mean, think about that number. What was it? 43, 46% come on nights and weekends?
46, but overall, but it depends.
Like, you're basically saying you're going to staff those man hours on nights and weekends.
Yeah.
And like, my rule of thumb, I think a little over a year ago, was and this isn't fair to say, I guess, but like, I don't take my work home with me. I like to shut off the phone at 5. It's just a boundary that I established, because to me, like, especially even my VIP clients, they know family time is family time. Like, I make that a priority unless I tell you otherwise.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's smart. But it's hard to do. I mean, it's hard for everybody.
100%.
Yeah. So that's also what makes it hard about hiring. And I say it's why we've been successful, really. I think the hiring an inbound team means you have to deal with that problem too. So you go out, like you say, okay, well, I'm not going to deal with any of this like inbound lead nurturing and engagement and all that stuff. I'm gonna outsource it because I want to spend the best time allotted to the best high money, high ticket items. And so you outsource it, you bring someone in house and you have them be your ISA, and they're going to handle all inbound leads. I'm like, what time do they go home? And okay, now you're going to handle 8 o'clock to 4, and then you got a 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. person or something. And then you're kind of like, you're hoping they're doing their work and you're hoping it's being managed correctly. And you're like, at some point, you try to squeeze as much juice as you can, but at some point, it's kind of why Verse exists, right? It's why we've been successful. Is like, all right, well, you don't have to hire anyone. Let us deal with the headache, and it is a headache of staffing 24/7. We have to figure all that out, which we do, and we did it. We started doing 24/7 again when we were doing our own leads, right? So kind of as our own team would come in and see all the leads that came in overnight, and we were seeing really low engagement rates the next morning to all these people who had filled out forms, after 7 p.m. or whatever it was. And we were like, well, what if we just put them on? What if we had, a shift from, 8 to 2 and from 2 to 6? And, like, what if we had those shifts? And it was really successful. Those people were engaging. Some of the, it was kind of a hard stat to figure out, because the same report I was pulling I was also interested in what the conversion rate was, or the what we call like the qualification rate. A conversion to us is different than it is to the actual salespeople, because a conversion to us is, we got in touch with them, they responded positively, they met all your qualifying factors, and we booked them on an appointment or a live transfer. So that doesn't mean they're going to buy, and there's a whole other game post Verse qualification. But we were curious about what of the people who were responding at night, were they all drunk? Like, were they going to be good leads? Were the leads that were coming in after hours more likely to be good leads, or were they more likely to be bad leads? And it's still a stat we're trying to sort out. It's more complicated than it sounds, because when we do, some companies, so there's mortgage companies that send us 20,000 leads a month, but they're old or aged, like they're off triggers. And all of those we load all of those during business hours, so it skews the results. So we're still working on trying to pull all the data out so that we can figure it out, because there were verticals where the qualification rate was higher at night than it was in the day. And you could make a case for why that would be true, right? If you're in bed with your wife and you're looking at real estate together, and you see a house that you both like, and you put it in and someone responds to you, you're like, you want to get the answers as fast as possible, versus somebody at work or sitting on the train or whatever it is, and filling out the form during business hours. Those people may not respond to you and may do something else.
Right.
So it's interesting. Anyway, I'll try and pull that up and I'll share it on LinkedIn when I get it. I'm putting all that data together this week. So anyway, so you should have a process for handling inbound leads. So you're not on the phone after hours. Do what Ricardo does, or don't do what I do, which is keep working. But handling inbound leads is not where you should be if you are going to take time away from your family and friends, and it should be for a good reason and not for a Facebook lead, for example. If what the conversion
bad
rate
reason.
is on those.
Bad reason.
Yeah, that's not a good reason. Yeah. So, and if it is automated, so if you have after hours automation and a text goes out, set expectations. We're out of the office right now, but we'll be in touch with you first thing tomorrow morning or whatever it is, so that you're not leaving them hanging. At least they know a person saw this and they're going to reach out. And this one seems, with talking with the audience we're talking with, you guys are all, everybody has a CRM. You should have all your leads come into your CRM. It would be shocking for you to know all the conversations that we had where you go, because the first question that we would ask on our account executive team would be like, so what tools are you using? What are you using? A CRM? Which CRM? What are your lead sources? You'd be shocked at how many people have 2 or 3 CRMs, and there are lead sources that don't go into like, well, my leads from Dave Ramsey, those ones actually go into just my email or I have those on a spreadsheet that I manage. It would be, maybe you guys are all nodding your heads or maybe shaking your heads, but just make sure like it's what they're made to do, right? If you have leads that are just floating or that are out going somewhere else or managing from a spreadsheet, and it's because you haven't just taken the time to set it up, go set it up. you're messing up. There's nothing more to add to that. Like make sure you're using your tools. It's like buying a blender and just putting it in a cupboard and never using it.
In the original box.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Leaving it in the original box.
Exactly. You're like, oh, well, I mix my fruit. I just use a spoon.
I muddle it.
What are you doing? So yeah, I mean, I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir. I'm sure you already all do this, but don't let any lead sources that are coming in. There's so many different places for leads to come in, but don't let them dangle anywhere, and don't let them go communicated with. And this one also seems silly, but one of the reasons why you do that is so that you can track engagement and conversion rates by different lead sources. So if you don't know how a lead source is doing and you're going off your gut, like, oh, I think that I got a deal from that one last year, so I'm going to continue paying them. Well, what percentage of those leads turn into conversations? What percentage of them converted into an actual meeting? What percentage of those ended up being people who bought? Because you could have high engagement rates but super low conversion rates, and you should know about that, especially if you're planning on making decisions about where to spend money in the future. So one of the reasons why you want everything going in one place is so that you have the ability to know what's working and what's not working
at a glance.
Yeah, and Verse does that. Does Follow Up Boss do that? Do you guys have the ability to see by lead source where they are as far as status goes?
I don't think that you'll get that granular, or it might be in some of our reporting.
Yeah. Well, and you can't, you might have to do it yourself, right? You might have to pull it out of reporting anyway, but Verse does that for you. Like when all the leads that come to Verse are sourced separately or categorized separately, and then you get to see the engagement and conversion rates on them.
Mm-hmm.
But they still need to be tracked further, right? Remember, ours is just from raw lead to conversation and next steps, but you really want to know what percentage of them are actually going into homes, if they led to referrals, all that stuff.
Yeah, we do have like advanced lead routing rules. So again, every automation should have its own lead routing rule and whatnot. It sounds super high lift at first, but totally worth it to go through the process and set it all up first and foremost.
I'm sure. So those are the tips I had for you, Ricardo, and for your audience, everyone out there. Verse, if you want to go check it out, someone from the account executive team can walk you through kind of a demo, what it looks like. We're basically a 24/7 concierge that helps you outsource all the things we just talked about. If you don't want to do all the other things we just talked about and you'd like to have someone else do them, I believe we still have, and we have a really decent integration with Follow Up Boss. We have an API that allows all of our notes to go back in, and so we've worked with a lot of people using Follow Up Boss in the past successfully.
Awesome. Yeah, if you guys are, I know some of you are Follow Boss customers. I know some of you are new to Follow Boss. For those of you that are new to Follow Boss, we more than likely integrate with the tools that you're already using in your business. So we have a good sort of integrations library and page on our website that walks you through what the integration does, and all of those different things. In addition to like some of the things that I mentioned earlier, like automations, we do have an action plan library. So we have specific buyer and seller drip campaigns already written for you. And then there's members of our community that make those campaigns available. My recommendation is, look at them, read them, because you're going to talk in a different style. I prefer to write emails in the way that I talk. I think it's totally okay to do that. So look through the copy, edit it so that it comes across in more your conversational sort of style and tone of voice. And then if you're still feeling like, Ricardo, I'm stuck, email me, just Ricardo@FollowBoss. I'll give you the drip campaigns that I've written, battle tested with some of our other agents and clients out in the field, including some of the campaigns that we use, because we used Verse, and I think we still have our enterprise account. So we still use Verse today with some of my podcast hosts and some of the agent partners that we have there. So I'll literally give you the drip campaigns that we have. I'll also upload them into Follow Up Boss so they're available to you through our action plan library and whatnot. If you are new to Follow Up Boss and you want to save a little bit of money, it's a free 14-day trial. We handle migrations for you. So part of the beauty and so one of the reasons people, come over to us is because we'll handle your difficult migration from one platform to the other. And if you want to save some moolah, of course, who doesn't? You get 2 months off when you purchase one of our annual plans on either our Grow, our Pro, or our platform plans. So you can check that out and start a trial for one of that. We have an awesome, what'll happen is that when you sign up for the trial, is somebody in our sales and support team will onboard you. We like to ask, discovery questions to try to get to know your business, because we want to make recommendations. Like when we say we integrate with everybody, it's also a little overwhelming, because it's like, how do I use these tools and how do I, put it together, and how do I make sure this system's talking to that system? We don't want to leave you hanging. So our team is going to do a really good job of asking you those business questions to try to get a really good sense of your business, so that we can help you with how how to connect all of the dots. And then content like this, webinars like this, we don't want to leave you hanging. We want to teach you, giving you some higher level education. So we contracted with a company called Smart Inside Sales and Dale Archdeacon. So he's an industry coach. You'll get access to Conversion University that basically, he's built his business offering agent scripting and ISA training. So you'll have access to that 9-module training course simply by activating a trial. And in addition, he'll do 2 webinars a month. It's just ongoing Conversion University training directly within your Follow Up Boss dashboard, so that you never have to know, like, not only we're giving you the software, we're hopefully giving you the education to help you level up in your marketing too. So if you guys have any questions for us, the chat is open. Otherwise, thank you so much for being with us today. I really do appreciate you guys. Daniel, you're always awesome. So, and I love that you have so much freaking data.
Yeah, feel free to reach out to me individually as well if you and anyone in any of the attendees, if you have questions about data, or you have questions about which lead sources to use and all that. Our team's happy to share what we know. So feel free to reach out to me individually too.
And Daniel, is it okay to share your email?
Yeah, I'll throw it in there.
So Carla, thanks for asking about the scripts. If you just email me, ricardo@followboss.com. I have my scripts up in a Google Drive. I'll share that drive with you now. But what'll be easier is if I just upload them as action plans. I've been a little behind the ball on that one, but I'll copy that over so that it's available in the action plan library and you guys have access to it.
Very cool.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so very, very much. Appreciate you all. Daniel, appreciate you.
Thanks,
and
Ricardo.
we'll catch you all in the next one.